Hello guys, Tonyone here from Coding for Youth, and welcome to my 23rd lessons, 23rd lesson in this Python series. Uh, in the previous lesson, we discussed Python loops, and we said Python has two primitive loops, which is the while loop and the for loop. And then we looked at it briefly and also checked how we can do a little validation in Python using the input statement. So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about the for loop. And before we do that, we want to say thank you guys for watching my video, my lesson, and also like to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and leave your comment in the comment section, like the video, and also of course it's by practice you'll be able to master whatsoever you're learning. Okay, in the last lesson I talked about adding a third condition like to our input validation, which is what you can see on the screen now. So I believe you're able to do that, but I'm going to just add a third condition, and that condition was in this particular code we were actually checking, trying to validate an input from the user at the command prompt, asking the user to enter their age, which of course age has to be a positive number and it has to be an integer. Okay, so we say why true. We started with the why true statement, which you can see at the top here, because for our Python code we run from top to bottom. We want to check, want to ask the user to enter their age, and then we assign the age to a variable called age, the value they will enter to a variable called age. We use the input function to collect the value from the user. Then we'll now use a try except error handling in Python. We want to try to check if the age is actually an integer, and of course if it is not an integer, I want to do something. So instead of us to throw an error, we want to say okay, ask the user to enter the right value by saying okay, look, what we want is a numeric digits, and then we use a continue. The continue will have to take us back to the input screen where the input function, where the user will have to try again to enter the value. And we checked, after that we checked for another condition: is the value entered at this time less than greater than 1? And of course, because we already have our try except, we don't need that again. We can just print and say, look, you can't use a negative value, please enter a positive value. And then we'll do continue, and it goes back again, and the user will have to enter the value. If eventually user enters a value that is greater than 1 and is not a string, then we print the age. Now what if the user, if we want to say, look, you have to be above 18 before you can continue, we can actually add that third condition. We can come here and say if age is less than 18, I want to say please, I want to print and say please, you have to be able to continue. Okay, and then we now, if that is the case, we ask the user to enter the value again. So what we have here is a continue statement where we continue, and then at this time the user must have gotten the three conditions understood, and then enter a value that is above 18, and eventually we'll print out the age using the function string interpolation that we have here. So let's run this program and see before we continue what we have here. So if I enter a string, of course it will say please use a numeric digit. Now if I use a negative number, it will say please enter a positive number. And if I enter a positive number, let's say 10. You say please, you have to be above 18 to continue. Okay, so if eventually I enter something like 19, it will actually print your age is 19. Okay, so that's the answer to the assignment I gave in the last lesson. So now let's talk about loop. So I'll just clear my terminal, and then I'm going to attach this. I'm going to add, attach this. There's no need for that. There's no need for me to add this code. I wanted to say, okay, look, I will I will put this at the description, but there's no point. There's no need. Okay, so we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this for loop. Uh, dot py. Okay, so now the for loop, which is actually similar to the while loop, is used for iterating over a sequence in Python. When I talk about sequence, I'm talking about things like a list, a tuple, a dictionary, or a set, or even a string. Okay, now the for loop, can actually execute a statement, a set of statements once for each item in a list, a tuple, a set. Okay, and the formats, which I believe we have talked about it before, because we use it in previous, in most examples that we demonstrated while we're learning along the path. Okay, so the for loop, let's say we have something like names. I would say we have a list of names. So we have the variable names, and then we assign some names like Tom, we have Jerry, we have Andy. Of course, these are strings. We have Andy, and we have John, and then lastly, maybe we have Doris. Okay, so we have a list of names assigned to the variable names. We can actually loop through each of these. We say for, and then we assign each of the value or each of the items in the list to a variable. So let's say we have x, for x in, so we use the identity operator here now. For x in names, we want to print each of those items. So we want to print x like this, and then so let me explain what is happening here. So we have a list of names assigned to a variable called names. These are different lists, these are different items. The list has different items, and what we want to do, we want to be able to assign each of these items to a variable and print them separately, so we can iterate through this list using the for loop. So we have for. You see that in Python, the for loop, we don't need to initialize or index. Okay, in JavaScript you have to do that. You have to say let x, or for var x is equal to 0, and then you now check the condition if the x is less than the length of the list and stuff like that. So but in Python we don't need to do that, so we just have to assign each of these items to this variable x now, if and then print it out. So if we run this, of course, you see Tom, Jerry, Andy, John, Doris. Okay. We can actually do it in another way. Let's say we come here. I'm going to do another for. I say for x in. We can actually do something like range. We can use the range, right? And then we'll find the length of names. Let's check this, and then we can actually now print names as a function of x, right? Names, not function. Okay, so let's clear this, and of course save and run this again. So we still have this printed. So I'll just explain what these two programs are actually doing. The first one is, of course, we assign each of these items to the variable, and then we just printed the variable. In this other case, we used the inbuilt Python range. Of course, this accepts three parameters: the starting point, the ending point, and the interval. Okay, but in this case, we're just getting the ending points, which is going to be the length of our list. Okay, we can actually get the length of the list by using the length function. Now, if we check the length of this list, we have how many items in this list? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this will actually give us 5, right? And then remember that we can actually get each of these items by their index. That means if you come here and you say names and you're using the index, let's say index 0, of course this will give us Tom, right? So if I clear my terminal and run this code, you can see I have to print this, for us to see the answer. So let me clear the terminal again. So you see we have Tom, right? We have Tom at the bottom. Okay, you can actually print, we can put line break here to have see what we are doing here. Separate this from the upper one. I'll put line break here. So if I clear this terminal again and I run the code, you can see here now that the first for loop here, we have Tom, Jerry, Andy, John, and Doris. And the second one we still have Tom, Jerry, Andy, John, and Doris, because what this X is going to iterate through the range, which has a default starting point of 0 and then the ending, which is ending value, which is 5. So it will impute that value each time the loop is running into the index to find the index of the names. So we have 0, which will give us Tom. We have 1, will give us Jerry. 2, will give us Andy. 3, just like that, down to 4, because the index starts from 0, right? So that's how you can actually loop through that. Now, we can actually also loop through through strings. Let's say we have this to be equal to, let's say we have name, and then we say hippopotamus. Okay, as a string, we can actually loop through this string by using the for loop. We can say assign each of that to a variable called x, and then name like this. We can simply print our x, and then if we clear our terminal and run this, we have each of the letters of the string being iterated. Okay, now we can actually have a break statement also in in our for loop like we did in our while loop. Now with the break statement, we can stop the loop before it has, looped through all the items. So we want to stop the loop at a particular, point. When a condition is met, you use the break statement. Let's say we want to say if our x is equal to maybe the first p, we want to break, right? We want to just stop the iteration from going further. What did I just? This is going to be supposed to be string, right? So if we clear our terminal again and then we run this, of course it will just print the the first three strings in the first three characters in the string. Okay, so that's what the break statement can do. We can equally actually exit the loop when the variable is equal to particular condition. Okay, so let's say we want to exit out of the loop when x is equal to p. Okay, so the only thing we're going to do now is that we are going to put this our print statement at the bottom like this, and we'll just say print. Let's see. So if we run this code, we see that it only prints h and I. The p is not inclusive. Okay, now also we can have a continue statement in our for loop. With continuous statement, we can stop the current iteration of the loop and continue with the next. That means we can say if x is equal to p, skip that and then continue to the next. So let's say we have our print statement. Let's say, yeah, we can just leave it like this and then we use our continue here instead of break. We say continue. In this case, it will skip the p and print the other p and the rest letters. So if we Ctrl S to save this and clear our terminal and run this, of course the p's are actually skipped, and then you have the o. Anywhere it sees p, it skips it, and then we have the rest code being printed. So basically this is the very simplest form of the for loop, and of course the for loop can actually be used in complex programs and projects to do a lot of things. We can have a nested for loop. In fact, let me just talk a little bit about the range. Let's say maybe I said the range in Python has something like this. We have our range, and then we have the starts value, and then the final value, and then the starts, the final, and then the interval. Okay, basically that's how it's supposed to be. So let's say I want to loop through a range. I can say for x in the range. Maybe I want to say starting from 2 and then 40 at an interval of let's say 4. Okay, so and then I want to print x in range rather. So if I run this terminal You see, I'll have numbers printed 2, 6, 10, 14, down to 38. Okay, so we can equally have x, s in the for loop. Now the s keyword in the for loop specifies a block of code to be executed when the loop is finished. So you use the s when the loop has finished looping. So we can come here and say s, we just say print finished looping. Oh. Okay, so if we clear our terminal and then we run our program again, you can see finished looping. Okay, so that's what the S is actually used for. Let's talk about a little bit about nested loop. So we can have one loop in another, and how it works is that the inner loop we actually loop when at every iteration of the outer loop. Okay, so a nested loop can be something like let me say I have a colors. Let's say I have colors, and then I say this colors is a list. Let's say I have a list of colors. I'm going to assign it to a variable called colors, and then maybe I say red, and I say orange, or let me say yellow. Let's say green. Okay, let me put red here. Let me say green here, yellow, and red. Okay, so this is actually a list of colors, and then maybe I come down here, I have fruits, and then I say for green maybe apple, and then for yellow maybe orange, and then for red you can have red, cherry. No. Okay, let me just say cherry, right? Now, we can actually have a nested loop in the sense that once for every of the fruits we want the colors to be printed. Okay, so we can say for x in our colors, okay, we can now have another for. You see the way the nested loop is. Let's say for y in fruits, we can now print x and y. And if we clear our terminal and run this program, we can see green apple, green orange, green cherry, yellow apple, okay, red. Now for each iteration of the outer for each iteration of the outer rather, the inner is being printed. So what we have here is we have our green printed, and then we have the yellow, and then we have the red. We can see that we have the apple printed, orange printed as well. Okay, so to better understand this, let's say for each time that for each time that we loop through the colors, okay, we are looping through the fruit 3 times. Okay, for each time we loop through the the color, we loop through the fruit 3 times. Okay, because we have 3. So for green, we have our apple, our orange, and our cherry. Okay, for yellow, we loop through the fruit 3 times. We loop through the fruit rather again. We have our apple, our orange, our cherry. That's for yellow. And then for red, we also loop through the fruit, which is apple, orange, and cherry. So for each time we iterate through the outer or the parents loop, we are looping through the child or the nested, the one that is inner, 3 times. So that's what is happening here. I believe my explanation was fair enough. Okay, so lastly, I would just like to talk about an empty loop. If you have an empty loop statement or a Python loop, you can actually not just a loop, even a function uh, or a conditional statement. There's this particular statement called pass. So instead of you to have an empty function, empty loop, or empty conditional statement, we can just put a pass statement to avoid getting error. So let's say in this case now, if we don't want to print anything, we can just come here and say pass like this. And then if we run this code, let's clear the screen and then we run. We see nothing will happen. Okay, so basically we can use this pass statement to maybe one want to test a code. We can just use the pass statement and let's remove all the necessary what we were supposed we intended to do if the condition is met. So that's that for loop. Like I said, we can complex programs where we can have the for loop, being very handy. So this is just the rudiments of the for loop. So as we progress, as we proceed, you'll see more usage, and then you understand it better. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in another lesson.